Everything we know, the entire universe, might just be a simulation running inside a supercomputer. In this dream world of the imagination, anything is possible. Join us on the Simulationist podcast as we explore our culture of simulations.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Simulationist podcast. This is the 178th iteration of the show, recorded on the 31st of January, 2016. My name is Josh Trelevin.
And on the other side of things, Ryan Kirkby, mathematician extraordinaire, as we are now 1/12 of the way through the year.
1/12, yeah.
Yeah, boy, it doesn't seem like we've already zipped through that much of the year, eh? But it's like, bam, there goes a full month of it.
Yeah, 2016 barely started, and we're already zooming through it.
I don't know, maybe it's just me as I'm getting old, the time goes by faster.
I suppose, yeah.
But, enough about digressing on the little bits there. How was your week this week, Josh?
I had a pretty good week. I went out a lot. I spent most of the week out.
Mr. Social.
I guess so, yeah. That's unusual for me. I just went to basically comedy shows every day this week, yeah. Monday through Saturday.
Lots of laughs, I take it then?
Yeah, I laughed a lot.
They don't have, hecklers' nights, do they?
No.
Oh, good. I don't think I'd like to go up on stage on a heckler's night.
Well, I mean, not in Victoria anyways. I imagine maybe somewhere somebody's had that brilliant idea.
Maybe New York. They seem like they're cold enough and wise-ass enough that they could wind up getting away with a heckler's night being a good thing.
Well, except that New York also has a lot of sort of seasoned people and...
that's the thing. You're going to need a seasoned person to be able to withstand a heckler's night. Otherwise, it's just going to be devastating.
Yeah, but they also know that heckler's night, labeling it that, would be a very bad idea. It would be something that someone would come up with, in a city that was didn't have a lot of comedy, and maybe someone new was trying to do something different. They didn't have a lot of experience, and they're like, oh, let's try this. And then they would quickly figure out, oh, that's weird and bad.
I don't know, it'd be like an amateur's night, but for the audience, wouldn't it?
I mean, yeah, and it's true what you say about, though, different cultures. Like New York, there are rooms where heckling is more common than other rooms, but there's no specific, no one advocates for heckling.
I'm actually anti-heckling myself. Unless the guy seems to be bombing on stage, in which case a little heckle can, help enliven things, and maybe you can turn around and come out with you give a softball heckle pitch, oh, you suck, and then the guy gives off something that's it's like, sure, I suck now, but it's your mom sucking last night, sort of thing. And just, gives some nice way to put him on the top, and that way people will see him as being a little bit better, a little bit more clever. Because if you can, shut down a heckler, well, by God, that must be a pretty good guy. And, maybe try and get the laughs to come by a little bit more easy.
Well, I can't say I endorse that, but I know that some people do heckle with that in mind. And even other comics will sometimes heckle if they have something that's funny. So it happens.
So yeah, the only case I would ever endorse heckling would be in a, the guy's doing bad up there, you got to do something to change the pace. It's not working with the audience.
Well, and I wouldn't say that's not up to you if you're in the audience. That's up to the person on stage, and if they.
Oh, but if the dude's bombing, you got to try something different,
Well, I mean, the most merciful thing that can be done if someone's bombing is for the host or someone in charge of the show who's supposed to be doing it to cut them off early and say, hey, that was great, thanks very much. Try again next week, or
Oh, well, that guy's macking on a gal over in the corner there. He's busy elsewhere.
Well, hopefully not. This is what I'm saying, in a well-run show. But
in a well-run show, the person shouldn't be bombing. The laugh should be flowing free.
No, because, maybe, but generally, it's possible to bomb despite, everything being set up for you. And also, maybe somebody's new at the game, or maybe they're trying out new material or whatever. That's the other thing. Another reason for bombing isn't necessarily that you're bad. It's just that you've written a new 5 minutes. You want to test and see if it works on an audience.
And you do need to refine that stuff. You got to get it right. You got to turn the phrase just the right way. It's like starting up an engine. You can't turn the phrase. It's not. You got the key turned wrong.
That's how it works. Yeah. How did we get on that? Oh, yeah, because I went to comedy shows. I actually, weirdly enough, I only went up myself one time. I wish I could have gone up and done more time on stage, but overall I still considered it a successful week.
Very nice.
Just because I was, I got to absorb comedy and also
the culture of Victoria.
Yeah.
That's nice.
And I got to chat with the other thing. Like last night and the night before, I went and saw. His name is Brad Upton.
Yes.
And he is he's been doing it 30 years. He's been doing stand-up comedy for 30 years. He was very good, very funny, very quick. You would like him.
Very nice. I do appreciate a good quick wit.
He's very quick. Just, laugh after laugh after laugh. He just kept the whole room going.
I do appreciate the fast pace of good comedy, too.
Yeah, I think he did 35 minutes is typical for a headliner.
Because I got to say, if there's one thing I'm not a fan of some of the older comedians, was they have a bit more of a slower pace. They give a long setup, good punchline, long setup, big punchline. Whereas the more modern comedians, they get the laugh ball rolling, and then once they got it rolling, is the punchline, repeated situation, punchline, as they roll out a scenario.
Yeah.
And I do appreciate that a lot more than the slower pace. Although a good setup's a good setup. Don't get me wrong, it's both good, but my preference.
And also in Victoria, a lot of the people that we have go a little bit slower, and they're sometimes a little bit sloppier. I'm not saying that it's terrible, but this guy really had his own style of quickness to him.
Very nice.
It was really, really good. And then I got to meet him, shake hands with him at the end of the night. So
steal his power through the power of politeness.
I know, right?
Shake the hand.
At least my best attempt at politeness. Yeah.
Very nice.
And I got to see him 2 nights in a row. So. Man, I had a good...
So the first night you got a chance just to watch his stuff, and then the second night you studied it?
Well, I tried to
do
study
that?
it.
Do you see how he's doing the same, his hand expressions here at the same time? He always gives this hand expression at the same time as he's rolling on through the punchline.
I tried to study it as best I could both nights. He's just got funny, he acts out, he especially likes to make fun of old people, doing a little act out as an old person, shaking and...
Everybody has fun doing that.
Yeah, so... he's very good, yeah.
Excellent.
And that's, simulation-wise, he's sort of,
he is
recreating.
A well-practiced, liar, in this case.
Yeah, you can call a stand-up comedian liar.
Well, liar is a little harsh, but they are telling untruths, by and large.
I'm
or a
sure,
weird version of reality.
Yeah, and you have to, with everything that comes in through your comedy filter, you take out sort of stuff that doesn't add to or that doesn't belong. So you end up with a very distilled version, which is probably pretty much false, pretty much wrong, or might be taken from somewhere else, and squished through this process, and it comes out as a very entertaining story.
It's a narrative.
And a joke, and
so there you go.
Yeah, so that was basically my week. Yeah.
Not bad. It's not a bad week.
No. I was gonna say I played Minecraft, but not really.
You're just goofing off in Minecraft.
A little bit, but
very nice though.
I guess doing some more. I made those sheep farms, and so I basically sheared sheep.
Woo!
And bred more sheep.
The excitement never stops.
Yeah, I know, Minecraft. What a game.
See, that's why I got the one mod that'll have sheep that'll occasionally self-shear.
Oh yeah.
So then all I need to do is get them of enough colors, and then I'll just have my golems pick it all up and just toss it into my loot system.
Yeah, I've been thinking what I would like to do is modify the villagers in Minecraft.
So they'll actually do things for you?
Yeah, so that you have a shepherd villager that goes out and shears sheep or something like that.
Well, I do know, in the 1.8, they added that the farmers will actually tend to those crops.
Yep. Yeah, they do tend to the crops. So maybe Minecraft might be going in that direction. I don't know.
I would like something. One of the reasons I picked up Thaumcraft was for the golems. It was basically having like people you tell what to do, like minions, without actually, thankfully, having like minions from like the Despicable Me series. And it would be nice to have something that's actually supposed to be like living, like you have like someone like, I want you to do this. Although I think they do have like they call them turtles. That they just take little programming codes that you can tell, and they'll do things for you.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know if I really want anything like that. But actually having like a like somebody like, oh hey, you keep me safe, and I will do this for you. So your job is to make sure they don't get eaten by monsters.
Yeah.
As they shear sheep for you. Hooray! But that's just me. Maybe I want to be lording over a village. Who knows?
Yeah. So, and there are other games like, I guess, SimCity is a little bit like that. It's like
Dwarf Fortress is kind of like that, except you don't have any real direct controls. Like, I would like somebody to take care of this rapidly bleeding out dwarf in the hospital. Could someone do that for me? And everyone's like, no, man, I got to take a look at these socks. These socks. Have you seen the style and the engraving on these amazing dwarven socks? And the guy winds up bleeding out to death. So you have demands, and then they wind up like drunkenly laughing at you and doing whatever the heck they want.
That sounds like maybe a bit of a bug, though.
It is getting better as the versions go on. It's all about priority thing, and for some reason, medical priorities have historically been a little wonky because of regular dwarf needs versus your specific job. Some Mark's dwarves will have issues with that too. Like they will put on their shoes and their socks in the wrong order, and then they'll complain that they can't get their socks on over their shoes. And then you'll send them out to go fight goblins, and they'll wind up, instead of actually shooting goblins with their crossbows, they'll actually run up and just start bashing them over the head with the darn things. So, yeah, there's some quirks to work out. Long story short, fortification, so they can get close but not actually go there, and then, hey, if I can't beat them senseless, in melee, I might as well just shoot at them with my ranged weapon I happen to be holding. So, hooray!
What about you? What was your week in simulation?
I had a huge setback in Minecraft. I had all these, reeds for the from the growable ore mod, and that grows like ore reeds. You take like so many the reeds, and you can turn them into like gems. Like 8 reeds will get you a single diamond. 1 thing a reed will get you a like redstone, but it has to be of that specific type. So I got all the types I wanted, and then I set things up. Like I took my vertical farming, cut it all down, raised it all down, chilled out the basement and the whole area. But I had chickens, and like my daughter was watching. She likes those chickens, so I had to find a way to make this whole thing without having chickens just get loose and start wandering all around my town, because they'll do that. And I found a way of making sure it's like, okay, I clear the area about 2-3 spaces deep, and then that way the chickens, once I let them free, they'll go down into the little hole, and then they won't be able to get out of my area. So I did it like it was like a 41 by 41 sort of area, and then I dug it like I think it was about 15 squares deep. So it was a nice big hole where it used to be a wonderful farm. And then I build up a nice little area, and I'll get the first level of my massive, new structure. And I put down a whole bunch of diamond ore reeds, and I've got a B space, linked Java barrel, so that they can anything that the one golem collects will automatically be deposited into the barrel, and then I can just have the other quantum linked barrel wherever I want, so it can process it, or I can just store it as need be.
Oh yeah.
And that's nice because that way I can have like a completely sealed off area, and if it's well lit, no monsters will ever spawn. The golem can't get out and go do something else wacky and crazy because of programming in that nature. And then I realized, hey, these guys aren't like chopping down the ore reeds. What's going on? And so I tried various experiments, and no, they won't chop down the reeds. Because I have one that'll just like harvest, and he's supposed to go up to the thing, and then just whenever it gets like 3 high or 2 high, just chop it down to 1 and just let the other piece fall down, and then a collection golem will come by and snag it.
Yep.
Collection golem's working fine. He's working perfectly. Anything you throw down in the air, he'll automatically go to grab and toss it into the barrel. And the harvest golem's not doing a dang thing.
Okay.
And so I tried it out. I did some extra tests because I'm not made out of infinite resources. So I go over to the experimental world, in creative mode, and I give it a try. And sure enough, it doesn't work no matter what I do. It doesn't work if I make it artificially 3 blocks high. It doesn't work if I let it naturally grow 3 blocks high. He's not harvesting. And I'm like, oh no, what is going on here? And I think that the ore reeds qualify as ore and not as reed. Because I had a test with them, and sure enough, the sugarcane reeds, they'll do that. They'll chop that down whenever it grows, and hey, everything's hunky-dory.
Right.
But the harvest doesn't seem to work with something like an ore reed. It doesn't count as apparently being like a food thing or a growing plant.
Okay.
So now I have to find another way to get all this harvestable stuff to work. And so I might have to go to a semi-automatic piston system that'll just shatter it once a day.
Oh, yeah.
But that's like, oh my goodness, all the work I had done, everything I had set up, it's just it's gone. It's like, no, nothing's happening now. I'm like, oh, man. On the other hand, I suppose it's not that bad because the biggest limitation was having my harvest golem. They had a radius for harvesting the same as for irrigation from water, 4 squares. So it was fairly limited in space, but every other standard golem has a 16 square range. So now I can make rows 16 long and still have them gather. So I can have very nice long strips and all that. It's just oh my goodness, this is going to wind up being annoying. So I'm going to have to wind up finding, ideally, I'd need something that would detect when an object suddenly grows up next to it, either grows or is suddenly put there, and then emit a redstone signal so that it can go down to or go through something to hit a piston that would fire out and pop the reeds. Whenever it gets 3 high, it would pop the top 2 and leave the bottom 1 where it is.
Right, okay.
And that's nice, I suppose. But I don't think that's in vanilla Minecraft, so it looks like I'm going to have to find another mod and then learn a whole bunch of crud about Minecraft redstone system. And it's like, oh.
Well, that's weird that you've done so much in-depth stuff on other mods and stuff, like Buildcraft, I suppose.
Buildcraft. Well, Buildcraft has some nice redstone, compatible pipes. I'm gonna have to see what goes on with that.
Oh yeah.
It might have something like that, but it's just this is not what I envisioned at all.
Okay. Yes, you didn't like redstone.
Well, historically, you saw, before I got to the point where I am with mods, redstone was very hard to come by. So it's every time I'm using redstone, it's a very finite resource.
Oh, yeah.
And it wasn't until I got mods that allowed me to make my own redstone over a course of time that I could actually do stuff like, oh, hey, I'll play around with pistons now. Hooray!
Yeah.
So I was like, ugh. Would a pressure plate work on its side, or does a pressure plate always have to be on the top of something?
In vanilla, pressure plates only go on top. Yeah.
No, there goes my easy solution. A pressure plate on the side could be, affected by an ore reed growing up, and then just have the piston work from that.
Yeah.
Oh, there that goes. Oh, so it looks like I got some reading ahead of me, which is on top of the other reading I've got going on this week, because you know what I said last week about the DM's Guild.
Oh, yes.
This is a chance to if your adventure is good enough, it'll get included in things and effectively worm its way into canon. This will be something that happened and will actually be part of the actual setting. This is something that actually happened. Oh my gosh. Technically to a point where it could be considered even more canon than something that happens in the novels, which is very oh my goodness, this is more canon than a novel. Ooh. So it's okay, I got my plan, and so I've come up with a plot for a campaign sort of a series, or at least a side campaign. Apparently what they're looking for is nice little things that you could put inside on the sides of your adventures. And so I said, okay, I'll see what I can do. Maybe I can flesh it out to its own sort of thing, but I'll see what I can do about small dungeons. Nice, simple, one-night sort of things. But in order to make sure, I want to have a nice classic sort of adventure feel. So don't ask how, don't ask where, but I got a copy of the A series of modules. From the Scourge of the Slave Lords series. And I got it for a number of reasons, because it's like, well, which one should I choose? Should I choose this adventure series? Should I choose that one? Which one to go with? And I went with the A series because, primarily, it was one of the first ones made officially by, TSR that featured more role-playing than hack-and-slash style. Apparently, from what I've been reading on the sites and all that, the Gen Con, stuff that they had, back in the day, was mostly hack-and-slash adventures. You didn't have a lot of time to get nuances in and do a lot of role-playing.
Sure.
And so the scoring for, tournaments basically went, you have, this many players, they cleared this many rooms and survived. So if you have like 9 people and you managed to survive with all 9 people through a lot of rooms, you get good scoring. Whereas it was only a one person thing, and so I guess the guy snuck through all the rooms. What does that matter? And then he died in the 5th room. Okay. It's just okay, I guess you got 100 points, whatever. But this one changed up stuff in a number of ways. So it was low level encounters with monsters that were like people. So you'd actually role play, instead of just I walk up and slash the kobold. Mm-hmm. For instance, at the end of the series, I guess it's a bit of a spoiler alert. It's 30 years old, no spoilers. The players get knocked out and become slaves of the Scourge Lords, of the Slave Lords, who leave them, on a caldera. That's about to a volcano that's about to go up. It's about to erupt, and they take all the spell books, and and so you got no spells, and they take all the items, so you got no gear, and you got to try and get out. You got to get through the dungeon of the Slave Lords and get to safety. Maybe try and fight the Scourge Lords, the Slave Lords at the end. Maybe just try and book it for safety. Who knows? Right. It's up to you. I mean, you get to actually make that choice, right?
Okay. Yeah, fun.
But it goes down to prove a point are you your inventory list or are you a character? Which is something I've always said is being a historical issue with D&D. Is if you got the right magic items, then it's whatever. You just I activate this magic item, this magic item, this magic item. Mm-hmm. And I use my high end weapons and armor, and I survive the encounter.
Yeah. Bada
bing, bada boom. So this is a nice way of saying, okay, you encounter enemies, but all you guys got are a bunch of fists. And this guy over here in the corner is using die 4 for hit die. So he can't take a lot of hits from other fists.
Yeah.
And so I really want to read through and see how it's supposed to play out as a bit of a change of pace adventure.
Sure. Yeah.
So I'm quite looking forward to doing that. However, it's going to take me a while to get reading. I didn't get a lot of that done this week. It seems all of Victoria has come down with a little nasty bug, and people have been dropping left, right, and center at work, so I've been picking up a little extra hour here, extra shifts there, staying late, making sure things get done. So it's oof. Then I'm tired. And my wife got sick this week, so it's okay, make sure I get home and, take care of my daughter properly so that my wife can just relax and get back to health. So, needless to say, when you're looking after a 3-year-old kid, you're not reading very many gaming modules. So right now they're sitting almost pristinely untouched as PDFs on my computer, just begging me to read them. I can hear them when I go to bed. It's no, I got to go to sleep. I'm no, dude, just read a few paragraphs. Get the intro. I'm no, I can't do that. So hopefully tonight I'll be able to at least read a page or two in there, just as I'm relaxing. But that's okay because there's other ways to relax. I managed to get through a decent amount of the backlog, because I am sadly very, very behind on Welcome to Night Vale.
Oh, yeah.
And that's one of the things where it's if you're a little fatigued, dude, I had such an annoying day, I don't even want to have my eyes open, that hurts. But you're still, not tired enough to fall asleep when you close your eyes. You just put on Night Vale, just close your eyes, and listen. And it's a wonderful little story. about 25 minutes long, with a nice little weather report that happens to be a musical. So it's like, oh yeah, it's actually really good, and really good for keeping those creative batteries charged.
Mm-hmm.
So I managed to get through that, and I say, oh, okay. And as a final bonus, as it turns out, the local library was able to go through a whole lot of the waiting list on Frozen, and we managed to pick it up this week for rental.
So Frozen.
Yes, one of the Disney one, based off of what story was it? I think it's supposed to be based off of one of the Hans Christian Andersen stories.
Oh, is it? I didn't know that. I assumed it was just an original.
Very loosely based. Enough to say, it's just like we had that as an inspirational source. Yeah, I think it's based on like The Ice Queen by Hans Christian Andersen.
Okay.
I gotta say, there's a lot more music, more tightly compacted in it than I thought. Like Disney, so there's going to be music, right?
Yep.
But this one was like it was almost like 3 songs back to back to back. Like just telling up the backstory of everything. And it's like, wow, man, this is like really getting hammered by all the music. Not that it's bad music, but it's like, like, dude, do people actually speak? Is this like Les Mis where everybody just sings every line? And there are some areas where they're singing, as a part of a conversation. But thankfully there's enough, spots where there's non-song to really get into the characters and the plot. I don't know if it counts as a spoiler, but the one guy who turns out to be a turncoat, and I was really unhappy that he turned out to be a turncoat because he seemed like such a nice guy all the way up until he revealed that he was like a jerk, like butthole. He really seemed like a really, really good guy, and it's like, well, maybe this is a movie where there is no like real bad guy, just misunderstood people, and then you have the conflict of like, ooh. Who is she going to choose for her romantic, partner? Good guy A or good guy B? What if there is no bad guy? It's like, wow, I would actually make it a really legitimately difficult choice. And then the one guy, Christoph, he's like an ice farmer, basically.
Ice farmer?
Well, he gets ice up where it's cold and he moves it down to where it's warm. Basically, refrigeration before there was refrigeration coils and electricity.
Right. Yeah.
And his life is basically ice. And I'm thinking, well, what if he doesn't turn out to be the romantic interest of the character? That's the protagonist. What if he's with he pairs up better with Elsa instead of Anna? Because Elsa, she makes magical ice. This guy's all about ice. Maybe they wind up doing that because Anna's she wants to be engaged to this other guy here. And she's like what if it all winds up being like everybody pairs up nicely? Like, that was an interesting option. Like, wow, what if that happens to be a thing where the two, like the main, male and the main female, don't wind up getting romantically entangled. They just wind up being good friends, and then, they wind up going off to their romantic partners elsewhere. What if it's actually a platonic friendship they develop? Wouldn't that be interesting? No, it goes back to normal. Oh, one guy turns out to be a jerk, and then there's only one good guy for the lady to fall in love with. The end.
Okay.
It's like, oh. It was very progressive in the sense that how things were going, but it would have been interesting to have seen no bad guy and then just a platonic friendship form up instead of romantic. It would have been a very big change of pace for Disney's more formulaic plots.
Sure. Okay.
I think the biggest surprise for me, I was not annoyed by Olaf. He was clearly the comic relief.
The snowman.
Yes, the living snowman. He was designed for comic relief, and I'm like 98% certain he was not in the Hans Christian Andersen story.
Okay.
So he was clearly there for the kids to like and enjoy, and I was fearing he'd be a Jar Jar Binks, made to sell toys, be goofy, and comedic relief. But no, he had some depth of character. He had some wisdom to him. He had love to him, even if he wasn't smart, sort of thing. And he wound up actually being an enjoyable character, which was very nice to see. Because as I get older, I realize more and more I'm becoming an old fart. So like these, comedic relief characters wind up becoming more and more antagonistic to me. So it was nice to see that no, he wasn't, and I enjoyed him very much. So hooray! Even if he was goofy.
Okay.
So cool. I say that, like I recommend it. I mean, like and the animation quality. Well, Disney, so the animation quality is top notch.
Yeah.
But this is something you're going to want to watch again, just to watch the animation and see how they do little things, like the hand motion, see how natural they make things go, like the movement of the cheeks, you know, and just the little things. And oh my, the background was, you know, the scenery is just amazing stuff there. So it's worth watching for those alone. But yay!
Okay, so thumbs up for Frozen.
On the other hand, I didn't think I'd get to be able to watch Frozen, because when I checked at the start of the day, start of Friday, like, oh boy, what movies do I have reserved? I was not, saying that there wasn't a hold for it. I was on the list. I was first on the list, but it didn't look like I'd be getting it in.
Mm-hmm.
But they managed to deliver, so it's like, oh, but now I don't get to watch Big Hero 6, which was waiting for me. So I've got Big Hero 6 I didn't manage to see. I was like, what an embarrassment of riches. I've got Frozen and Big Hero 6. I was walking right out of the library with them. It's like, I felt really greedy. These are ones that have like a wait list on them. I had to wait a while. I had to reserve these ones weeks ago.
Oh, yeah.
That said, I'm still 134th on the line for Minions.
Wow.
Yeah. Oof. But, I mean, Frozen took a while to come in. I was also a little nervous that like there'd be little scratches on the disc.
Yeah.
Nothing. Played perfectly and smoothly, and that was very nice. So, like, my big worry now about Minions is after 134 other people watching it, and this is a kid's, flick, is like how scratched up is that DVD going to wind up being? Oof.
Well, yeah, I guess. I don't know. I think, like, library items have a number of plays that sort of they're expected to last by, and then they're sort of expected to have to replace them.
Yeah, but I mean, there's attrition. Like, do we really need 12 copies of this forever? Maybe we should, get the 12 and then go to, when it goes down to less than 8, we'll get one more and top it up to 8. Until
Probably.
such a point where it's, been like over a year, then we'll reduce it down to like 4 copies, through attrition.
Sure.
So I don't know how, how their procedure goes, but it's like, oof. Because I mean, we've watched a number of movies from the library that have little spots where they stop and they skip.
Yeah.
And one, our first attempt at trying to watch Guardians of the Galaxy at home, because my wife never saw it in the theaters,
right,
was completely unplayable. It would get up to like in your play, your scene selection, all that, and then it would just freeze up, and it's like, oh, you took me all the way through the previews perfectly, right up to that, and I'm hearing the ooga chugga. No hooked on a feeling plays, man. Just the start, just a little taste of the blue swede, and it's just like, no, man.
That's interesting. Yeah, because libraries, like books, you don't have. I guess books you can look in and see if a book is going to cut out halfway through.
Yeah. If they're missing a chapter, they're missing a chapter.
But yeah, DVD is you gamble on it. You take it all the way home. And
I take it home, and I polish it off with a Kleenex, and then I look at it from the angle with the light just to see if I can get how much the scratching is on there. And this one is good. There's a little bit of marking on there, but nothing I could actually call a scratch. Right. A scuff at most. So it's like, wow, this is actually really good quality. So I don't know if this is like a new one that they had to get to replace another one that got really, badly, unusably scratched or what. But it worked out perfectly for us this week.
Yeah. I guess, we talked about the web version, and
yes.
That sort of...
Well, that's the thing. I do like to try and watch it, on the TV here. I mean, my TV is like a 50-inch screen, so it's better than my computer. And it's more likely that we'll be able to sit down and try and do something more as a family that way, as opposed to, I watch the program, through streaming on the computer. And my wife's watching, her shows on her computer, and my daughter's watching, episodes of Doc McStuffins on her little tablet. In which case, we're all doing the same thing, and we're all happy, but we're not doing it as a family. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of what our Friday family nights are really about.
Okay. Yeah.
So, which is why I don't get a lot of chance to even attempt to go to the Roll for Initiative. Because I think historically they've been on Friday nights.
Saturday nights.
Saturday
after. Well, actually, the last one was Saturday at 1 to 5.
Oh, I'm working then.
Yeah. But they're starting another one on Wednesday nights.
Okay, well, I don't know. I might have to see. Because, oof. Man, this Belante guy who's doing the Flash, Green Arrow, Supergirl, and now the Legends of Tomorrow, he is really accounting for a lot a lot of my TV watching time these days.
Right.
So I was like, I don't know, I got to double check, and like when's X-Files on? I gotta have to start a list as to when and what channel, on what day of the week I got to start watching this stuff on.
Yeah.
It is very coordinated watching, or I get break down and get myself one of them PVRs eventually.
Oh yeah.
Go back to living in the future. And then just binge it all once a week. No, I can't do anything on Thursdays. Thursday's my watch everything night.
Yeah.
Oof. But yeah, that's basically be my week. Just trying to coordinate my fictions in together. But any which way I cut it, there's no losing, aside from figuring out that I can't do what I wanted to do in Minecraft. So
okay, yeah.
Although I'm pretty certain there's ways I can make it happen through a mod or two to make things work. Yeah. Or at the very least, I suppose I can ask. Or just check the config files. Maybe there's something in the config files that says, treat OR reads as a read versus treat OR reads as an OR.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Probably.
Yeah. That said, I wish I had done some, work first in the experimental mode before I got so far in my sketches and detailing how far everything works together. It's just like, oh, you're killing me, buddy, you're killing me. Oh, well. You live, you learn, right?
Yeah.
So, yes, that's been my week. I suppose that means we can get straight on in our new focused and lean style for a topic this week.
Yeah.
I believe you came up with this last week, but we wound up talking about all sorts of videos and movies we were watching last week.
Yeah.
So a potpourri of X-Files and Rick and Morty's.
Yeah. I wanted to talk about the repair skill or repairing items in general, or like encountering a broken thing sort of as part of an adventure and what happens. Or if you have something, like already have an item that becomes broken, or basically repairing broken things.
The shards of Narsil.
Broken sword could work, yeah. And then I've noticed there's a weird gap in some game systems, and as far as like the having fun part of the game is like, what do you really do when it comes to that moment when something needs repairing, needs to be fixed? Like, do you roll a die, or does the DM just say, "Oh, you fixed it"?
And then downtime later, everything's better.
Yeah.
Because that's the one thing is for the end of 2nd edition, early 3rd edition, they had Diablo 2 as D&D. And it was very interesting how they streamlined it. I found it very, very interesting. And like, okay, no, ignore food and drink. That doesn't matter. This is a fighting game. This is a hack and slash campaign. This is Diablo, buddy. Mm-hmm. And they had like a durability on the items.
Yeah.
And there was a nice way of just calculating out base durability, which is, I guess, something like hardness of the base, like material of the item times by 3, I believe it was, something like that. And that worked out well enough. And anytime you took like an excessive amount of damage onto your armor in one blow, or you dealt a lot of damage with your weapon, like anytime you deal like above standard max damage, like when you get a critical, you lose durability on your like sword. Because dude, you really freaking hammered him with that thing, man. My God, did you see? You just splattered his head like an overripe pumpkin.
Yeah.
In which case, they didn't really have all that much rules for repairing. It was just as simple, it costs this much, like per point of durability to get it fixed. Mm-hmm. But it did include, like, I found it interesting, it's like one more thing to keep track of is not just your hit points, but effectively your item's hit points.
Yeah.
So that way you could still be fine from like this, the demons, like a massive war maul strikes you, and well, you're not dead. Like, dude, your magic helmet just took the brunt of that one. It is now nothing. You have no magic helmet right now.
Yeah.
And so it adds a very interesting dynamic to a hack and slash game. I think I would not mind incorporating in my future endeavors.
But it's like, if your magic helmet has like a few points of durability left, just 1 or 2 like last little points, you can then sort of bring it back to full by spending the gold or whatever you have to do to repair it all the way to a full helmet.
They didn't have any magic spells on that. You basically just took it into town and then just paid for it to get repaired. Yeah. All the more reason to loot every body you can come across.
Yeah, and there are versions of, like, for example, D&D had at some point came out with a repair spell. Like, so a wizard could cast repair and
especially
repair.
on stuff like constructs such as the Warforged.
Yeah,
it was
would
very
it would heal
handy.
damage on Warforged. Yeah. I think that's where they came up with it in the Eberron
Yes,
campaign.
that was where they realized they really had to do something about it. They couldn't just, like, whatever, and just kind of look the other way.
Yeah, the player character is going to be a person who can't be healed by healing spells.
If your character is an item, then it becomes very important to figure out how to repair items.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm kind
I
of
like
glad.
that I like the flavor of that as well as a bit of mechanics to it too. Yeah.
It was very nice, particularly in 3rd edition when basically making a magic item was worked off a spell times by this and that. So what you could do is have a magic item using the cantrip for like repair and like insignificant damages or whatever the name of the spell was called. That would deal just 1 point health, and then you make it an all the time spell button on an area for something that didn't move, so it would wind up being a non-mobile magic item for half the effective cost. So caster level 1 times by 1/2 for the spell level 0 times by I think it was effectively 1,000 gold pieces. So it was like a 500 gold piece item to effectively create like a repair station for your whatever it was. You just throw all your stuff in there, and it would slowly, fix it up at 1 point per round, sort of thing. So there's a downtime, like everyone just like throw all your gear in here and wake up the next morning, and it'll be fine.
Now it's funny that the video game versions seem to have often incorporate that damage more often, damaged items.
It's a lot easier to keep track of. It's a lot less...
because the computer just does it. Yeah.
Well, there's simple mathematics, which is what computers are really excelling at.
But when we get to live table versions, we don't really like to track damaged items, armor pieces.
Other people apparently don't. I'm having fun with that. Because, it's just like having extra characters at the table.
Yeah. And one thing that...
Like, can you imagine like an intelligent sword that one's like, oh god, no, don't swing me so hard, you're killing me, oh, you're killing me.
Oh, that hurt. Oh, that's...
God, it was even just more disgusting on the inside. I mean, oh, I think you chipped my, I don't know, whatever. Like, what? I don't know.
Chipped my edge.
Oh, you chipped my pommel. Oh, you chipped my pommel. Oh. I'm going to be swinging with a limp for sure tomorrow.
Yeah. I don't know. Have you ever, you've done, hit people with swords, or not swords, but, sticks and, played. And
I grew up as a kid in the woods.
Yeah,
I've hit all sorts of people with sticks, yeah.
And do you ever get that feeling of, it rings in your hand when you hit somebody and it hurts you?
That vibration?
It vibrates in your hand. It's like, ow.
In modern interpretation, I always interpret it as being like a thorn sort of thing, where you take damage in response to hurting something else.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
Which would be interesting as a nice sonic spell, as like a defensive thing, like a sonic shield. Anyone that hits you in melee winds up taking sonic damage as you cause horrible vibrations going back along them. Or I guess it's not sonic damage anymore. Sorry, thunder damage for 5th edition.
And here's another thing, sometimes it depends on a personality. There are character archetypes who are I take care of my armor, and I polish it every day.
Well, how can you tell a person is a true knight if they don't take care of their armor like one?
Right, and then there's
all the more reason to get a squire, too.
The ruffian who's nope, just throw it on, toss it on, it's rusty, it's fine.
I got this from a creature I killed. When I think about it, probably wasn't a wise idea, because it didn't really protect them at all. But, I'm wearing it now. It's better than my old gear. I
guess those probably aren't that common, because sort of the law of attrition would, warriors would be if you want to survive, you have to, your armor, because that's...
You should, but don't forget the motive for D&D tends to fall under the role of murder hobos.
Yeah, okay.
Where it's you kill things, take their stuff, and wear them, and then use them against their friends.
Yeah, that's true.
So if there's one group of players that's going to wind up, having, oh, hey, we killed this thing, and then we took its armor, and now we're wearing it, it's going to wind up being player characters.
But if I could have a choice of, say I'm the party manager.
Ooh, that's an interesting role.
Recruiting a fighter.
Uh-huh.
And one fighter comes in, he's military trained, he's really, shiny armor and stuff like that. and versus like the guy with the just rusty and just teeth missing and unshaven. I think I might choose the military guy.
Well, he definitely seems to keep himself together. Although, as an aside, for this party manager thing, just as a tangent, I had a brief flash. Like, I like to keep track of like the durability of the armor of my character.
Yeah.
And like, I don't think it would be that hard. Like, if everyone else is like, oh, okay, it's not a bad idea, but I really don't want to do all those number keepings. Like, what if you have a person who is like literally like the party manager who keeps track of that, where everyone else focuses on the role play and the tactics, whereas you're keeping track of like hit points of them and their gear, and so you're effectively like a sub DM. It's like, oh yes, no, don't worry. If they take damage, just roll it through me, and I'll tell them, I'll remind them about this stuff. That way they can focus on the role playing, and I'll just take care of the numbers.
I think that could work. Yeah, it could be
in a right group. It could be an interesting style.
Yeah.
Very interesting. I'll put a pin in that, because that sounds like something I might want to come back to and think about at a later date.
Some groups I think might be like, because some of there's a little bit of not antagonism, but the competition between them and the DM. So there might be a temptation for that person to be more on the player's side. But it's only armor, so it's probably not that big a deal. So
one or two more pieces of armor, whatnot, not bad.
Yeah.
But for more mundane items, I suppose you can always work it down to, it's not just repairing the skill to some degree. It's also about like, what do you do for upkeep? Because that's how like a lot of the editions boil it down to. It's just I think third edition said like basic, unless you're like extravagant sort of thing, it's like 2 gold a month, and that qualifies keeping everything nice and polished, right?
Yeah.
But that doesn't include like stuff like replacement things for like crossbow bolts. So you got to spend extra to get those back, despite the fact that you could see a crossbow in the game as losing its durability by or usability by losing its ammo.
Yeah. Yeah.
Although I do recall that the Pathfinder series had an interesting alternative to regular bows, regular arrows and bolts, by doing like a Mastercraft one that was 20 times the value, but it would not be shattered by usage, so you can always recover it, provided like it doesn't stick in some guy who runs away.
I guess I just remembered there is kind of a rule in D&D. I guess it's sort of half house rule, because when you roll a 1, sometimes the DM will say it's a mishap. I don't think it's an official rule that your weapon breaks or a string breaks or something like that, but often that's how a DM will interpret that, is when you... It is
a nice way of adding a different pace to things. It's like, oh no, twang, it broke. Now you got to do something different.
So that can be that's a way to model durability on items. That's not like tracking every single hit point of the item, but it's just once every 20 rolls, or approximately, you have a chance of it breaking, or something that...
Which is a lot more fragile for many weapons than the
fragile,
durability sort of thing.
But I mean, well, I guess it's a DM's call, so sometimes the DM will be like, no, it didn't break, but you slipped, or, DM throws in something else. But, every once... So 1 in 20 of those, the DM just comes across... Maybe the DM has a table of mishaps, and one of them is the weapon breaks or something.
Which would be like, that's a natural 20 on your natural 1 then. Just to say, you critically fumbled that one, man. Of all the fumbles, that's a critical fumble.
Yeah.
Weapon break.
I suppose the other thing is when you roll that natural 1, and the DM decides that something breaks, and then the DM has to decide whether it's your armor, a weapon, or some other piece of equipment that you have.
I do recall there being a list in 3rd edition. You go down the chart as to what gets affected first after you, based on your items.
Yeah.
I haven't seen that table in a long time. It was not a very well-used table.
And another thing, there is, at least in 3rd edition, I think they took it out for 4th and 5th, but they had sundering was a rule.
Yes. Sundering was very angrily perceived by a lot of players.
Yeah.
Say, how dare you try and take my stuff away. It's basically like a stat-wise, it's like, Rust Monster comes on in and eats your item.
The Rust Monster and other sort of weapon-destroying or equipment devouring. Did we do an episode on devouring equipment or something like that?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
We've done stuff on eating, but not actually eating equipment.
Yeah.
But Like that was like the Rust Monster is also very negatively. It's a classic, an iconic D&D monster, but it really does anger a lot of players.
You know what? It just occurred to me it would be fun to have it for the Rust Monster is that the Rust Monster is attracted by sort of slightly rusty equipment. So if your players aren't, mentioning on the top of every rust or area that, polishing my sword, making sure there's no rust on my armor.
Get the blood off it at the end of combat, sort of thing.
Yeah, that's when the Rust Monster gets attracted, because he can smell a bit of rust, like a bit of blood.
That does remind me of one of those old kids' story books, sort of thing, about there's a bunch of like messy little creatures, and then they attract this horrible like nasty like monster, like draconic beast that winds up eating all sorts of stuff, and they're all, oh no, we don't like it around, and it turns out it's like eating their junk that they're hoarding away. So if they clean up after themselves, the monster has no reason to be around. And that one, done that way, the Rust Monster strikes me as very much that creature.
Yeah.
So it's like, wow, man, you just turned that iconic D&D monster into a kid's lesson.
Well,
I'm not complaining about that. It's just I find it as I was like, well, you didn't take good care of your stuff. Now the Rust Monster's going to come and start trying to eat it. Num nummy.
Yeah. What else? And in sort of more modern games, there's repair skills. Sometimes you encounter something like a broken down car or something like that.
Oh, and you got to jury rig it.
Yeah.
Well, so that's one of the things that people wound up complaining about on the Legends of Tomorrow. It was like, oh my goodness, what a cheap budget. The guy's trying to fix his time ship, and he opens up a panel, and there's like, that piece of tubing that you wind up having at the back end of your dryer. That just takes all the lint and hot air and blows it out the back.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my goodness, how cheap he had that there. And I'm like, no, that actually looks like he was repairing it with whatever materials he had handy or could get at the time he was in. So in which case, using that as some sort of like insulatory thing and, to some sort of like time conduit might actually play out and make sense. Because like if you're having a hard time jumping ahead in time, to get ahead in time, you're probably going to have to fix things, so use what you got on hand. So in which case, it'd be like jury rigging, just like hooking things up, or getting the two wires underneath the car, spark. Oh, hey, now it started up. So I mean, but that falls underneath, I guess, a different role for that one for most games.
Yeah,
as opposed to fixing it. But it does have a very interesting style compared to like the medieval stuff. The medieval stuff is like, I take it to a repairer, and they do like tinker's work. Which, by the way, the phrase "I don't give a damn" does not refer to damnation. It's a tinker's dam, as in like a dam that a tinker uses.
Is it?
It used to be that a tinker would be a person who would go around to a series of villages, and people would come out with all their worn-out pots and pans, because apparently back then the stuff was so cruddily made, you could wear out a pot or pan. It would have holes in it. Like how is that happening? Like, I guess we are really spoiled in this day and age. Like, when was the last time you said, I'm going to have to throw this pan away, it's got holes in it? Yeah, I don't think I've ever heard that. I've seen some of them get rusty because they've been left in like a sink when the water was up for way too long for like a cast iron skillet. But I have never heard someone have to throw away a pot or a pan because it's got holes. But apparently it used to happen back then, shoddy materials, and I guess people were eating, I don't know, whatever was in there. But the tinker would come by and he'd put like a clay dam on the other side, basically a clay mold on the outside of it, and then pour some liquid metal in there into the one area, and then it would harden up. Mind you, this wasn't good quality stuff. It'd be like tin. So it'd be like, oh boy, it's tin in my diet.
Tin curd.
But yeah, that's where you get a tinker. Otherwise it'd be like a copper per.
And so once you're done with the dam, what, is it useless then?
You don't need it anymore. You just wash it off in water.
Okay.
So it's something that's so completely useless, it's non-permanent. I don't even give a tinker's dam.
Yeah, okay.
And that's where it comes from. So if anyone says, don't swear about, saying, I don't give a damn, you could tell them, it's a tinker's dam. I'm not meaning damnation. Quit being so holier than thou.
Go ahead and try that. I don't know if it's always going to work, but yeah, report back to us.
But hey, but this way you get a better sense of how things used to be for repairs. So in order to repair all those armor holes, made by all those goblin arrows getting shot into your torso throughout the adventure.
That you somehow survived.
Healing potions, yo.
Yeah.
Woo. But with that stuff there is what you'd need is, if you're not putting a riveted plate around that to get a very harsh look on there, you would actually have to be doing something like a tinker's dam on that, pouring a metal in there. Mind you, anything for decent sort of thing on that would wind up having a plate of layers. But it's just a nice simple explanation for you got a single piece of metal.
Okay.
In which case, you'd wind up having to use a tinker's dam and all that, and you have to go through it. And it is not just a simple, oh yes, I rolled 17, I got it fixed. It's no, you got to get yourself some clay, you got to get yourself a heat, you got to get yourself some decent metal that you can melt down and utilize. You basically have to go back to the forge on this stuff, as opposed to, I think I can combine the solenoids from here, get some of the spark plugs from there, and I can get this up and running again. For the electronics of the modern era.
Well, here's another thing. Probably, if it's non-magical, well, it depends on the setting. I was going to say, if it's non-magical, sometimes it's easier just to replace it. Because I have played in adventures where we just encountered a room full of breastplates from an ancient army that, whatever, they put them in there as part of the treasure.
Well, you're not wearing them all the time. So, yeah.
Yeah. But also the fact is, ancient armor was pretty expensive, so it would be hard to come by any suit of armor at all.
You have to get it custom made to you, sort of thing.
That too, yeah.
Well, because this thing historically, it wasn't just that you go to Armor Mart and pick up your armor. Any time that metal isn't being actively sold to a customer, that's something that somebody could request that you can't make for them otherwise, because it's being held up in this shape. And so it'd be a make on demand with weapons and armor historically. You don't just go to, oh yeah, I'm going to go to the blacksmiths and just get myself some armor.
Okay. Well, there would be, I don't know, certain chain shirts you probably, if you knew where to look, you could probably find one that you...
Well, you could find stuff, but it wouldn't be new sort of things, so you wouldn't be picking up new, as I say, at, Armor Mart.
Right, yeah. But yeah, like I was saying, you might, in an ancient tomb or something, they might have buried, 30 of the king's best guards with him. Or,
But, they're not going to be wearing that in, the coffins, because, dude, someone's got to carry all that on top of the weight of the coffin and the corpse. So we'll just put it up in a nice little armor suit to make it all look nice and fancy.
Yeah, and, it depends on, I guess I'm thinking of super rich pharaoh, because, most, even pretty rich kings probably couldn't necessarily afford to just bury their entire retinue with them. You'd have to be...
Mind you, this is a magical campaign world in most cases, so it could behoove you to have something.
But yeah, you'd have to be like Genghis Khan or, the greatest emperor of the world, which, sometimes in D&D you encounter those tombs. This guy ruled the world for 1,000 years.
You do have a better chance than most of encountering it, especially compared to real life, accounts. Although I don't believe they've actually found Genghis Khan's burial area.
That's one of those
so
mysteries.
It's always open, provided you want to go around Mongolia, China looking for it. We think it's there.
Yeah.
All guesses.
They might have, it's possible somebody has found it and just is keeping it secret. One of those conspiracy theories.
Or I don't know, that seems like a nice, evil villain's lair.
Yeah.
Like Genghis Khan's burial tomb.
Okay.
Mind you, from what I've been told, it would actually be incredibly toxic to be in there. They had stuff like little miniature recreations, of the land that he ruled over, sort of thing. And in addition to looking absolutely beautiful, because miniatures, look at all that, tiny little miniatures. What they would use for water would be mercury.
Oh yeah.
Because it doesn't evaporate out. Like water will. So that way it'll still look good, months and years and decades later. Unfortunately, it will produce mercury fumes, rendering the entire area poisonous. So I don't know. I guess maybe that's an extra line of good defense against the heroes. Everyone got to walk around with their full masks on for, against mercury poisoning, right?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
The hero in Vismo phases through the wall and tries to enter in, the evil, nefarious layer, only to, oh god, there's mercury in the air. Oh, no, down he goes. They find him and dispose of him quickly.
Yeah. I was also going to say, like, in ancient, when they excavate ancient cities, one of the major things they find is just the piles and piles of pottery and, like, broken stuff. Like,
oh, yeah, people would throw out all sorts of stuff. Like, entire, like, hills have been made on people throwing out their garbage in the same spot long enough.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean,
which is actually very good for archaeologists. So keep on throwing out those garbage, folks. It'll be good for the future of scientists and archaeologists.
And I sometimes think about that when we talk about our disposable society, and our society probably has the most reusing and recycling of any society ever. It's just that we're so big, but yeah. I mean, per capita, we're probably doing a lot better than most of history. Once you hit, I guess I'll say Iron Age or Bronze Age beyond. Before that, it tends to be very organic, in which case... I guess everything just, goes back into the earth.
So, once you hit that spot, I think we're doing very well for ourselves, but we could always be doing better.
Yeah.
Just because you're winning the race doesn't mean you stop running the marathon. So there's that.
That's true. Yeah, so the question of whether... if something is broken, whether you even bother to repair
especially
it.
For the cheaper stuff, like I showed an example for Tinkers and Tinkers Dams, for repairing metal. But that's not going to help you at all if you've got leather armor. In which case, it might just be a lot easier to, just get a whole new suit if you want to look good, as opposed to getting a whole bunch of leather patches on patches style.
Yeah.
On the other hand, if that's your style, I mean, go for it, man.
And then in D&D, also what we have these magical, 100,000 gold piece value, suit of armor with this enchantment, that enchantment, +2, glamored, all that stuff. And it's enchanted out the Holly Hazoo. I guess if that gets damaged or whatever, then you really need to.
It was forged from the tapestry of mythology itself. Where am I going to find more of that?
Yeah.
Oh, don't worry, just put a leather patch over there. It'll be fine.
So if you get swallowed by a dragon and, sitting in its stomach acid for a while, you might get out, but...
no, there's the thing. If you get out but your armor doesn't, are you really much better off? Because you're facing a hungry dragon who's just suddenly lost his lunch.
My assumption was you getting out is that your friends had somehow killed the dragon and cut him open. Like, oh, thank God.
I don't know. This dragon seems like it's already eaten one adventure.
Yeah.
Maybe you find yourself with 3 friends sitting in the middle of the stomach of a very content dragon. I knew we shouldn't have played halflings. If we had just one half-orc, he couldn't have eaten us all. Horrible tangent there.
Yeah. I think there might be a rule also about magic armor being... Well, it's not immune to acid, though, or stomach acid, is it?
No, but it does get decent bonuses from saving throws.
Saving throw?
Yeah.
Okay. So.
Unless there is something that would otherwise make it normally immune. I do believe, was it brass or bronze, is inert against almost all acids. So if you wind up fighting a black dragon, utilize whatever that one is. But look it up first. If I say brass and it turns out to be bronze, oh my gosh, you guys are going to kill me for all the dead players. I thought I was immune. It's like, no, that was bronze. Oh my God, I paid so much for this brass armor. And now it's melting on my skin.
Another thing, there's rules sometimes for substandard. I think I've seen rules for stone and bone.
Yeah, back in 2nd edition, especially with the Dark Sun, there was all sorts of fun rules for that. Yeah. As well as spells that would make it as good as metal, because, metal, poor world. Yeah. Which I would really like to see back in some capacity, because it opened up for oh yes, my obsidian plate armor without it being ridiculously useless. My bone armor is actually worthwhile on the field of battle. It's not just really macabre and decent for necromancers doing weird necro things.
Yeah.
So I suppose I'll have to look all that up and see how it goes and then how it all operates. But I think that's like even harder because I mean, like, dude, you can patch, like up leather armor, you can do a tinker's dam on metal armor, but what are you gonna do for the bone armor? It's just okay. We gotta unweave this bit here, get rid of this bone, put another bone. It's got to be of a medium-sized, humanoid creature because of how this is going, and then we gotta weave it back together up again. It's like, oh, you really can't do much for that. Unless you can really find, just finesse the DM and try and convince them that a Cure Light Wounds could apply on that armor because it's bone. Which would make it for a very interesting material in that case if you're keeping track of damage. Mm-hmm. That instead of like all this, expensive repairs, like a Cure Wounds spells will actually operate on it as well, though it were like a regular like person healing up durability. Yeah. Because although it would wind up being not as good as you for the armor, it works as a nice starter armor because, dude, I can keep it. And I suppose you could work for like elven stuff with, I don't know, leather leaf or something, something elfy for that, where you can actually have like leather equivalent armor that can heal up and regenerates over time. Like you leave it outside for a day and it regenerates a point of durability.
Okay.
Or an hour of daylight.
Can you Indeed, what do you think of upgrading armor, via some skill or something like some?
I am a fan of it in concept. Practice, especially for stuff like D&D and how the magic items work, does make it a little difficult.
Yeah.
But I've always been a fan of the armor spikes since 3rd edition made them just like, oh yeah, pay this much extra and get your armor spiked.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, man, yeah. Now eat me now, dragon, eat me now. I'll be the worst case of heartburn you ever had. Or mind you, it got really expensive. If you wanted like +5 spiked armor, the spikes had to be enchanted separately. So you could get like a suit of armor that was something like it'd be 300,000 gold pieces.
Yeah.
It's just because it's spiked and those count as a separate weapon for enchanting. It's like, oh my gosh. But boy, that would be like epic. Just not epic, but it would be like, this would be something they would sing about. Because the spikes were vorpal, and they did acid damage whenever anyone tried to hug him, and the armor itself, was slippery. So somehow the spikes didn't snag on things, and he was able to shoot around wherever he wanted, slipping on the ground. Some crazy combinations there.
I also want to ask you about repairing dungeon walls and doors and stuff.
Oh, yes. I will admit I'm bad for that. If I can't pick a lock, and I don't have a character that's going to invest in that sort of skill set, I will invest historically in an adamantine dagger and then just cut the dang thing. Because, at least back in 3rd edition, it would ignore hardness on things. So it would be like, oh, this lock has 5 hit points. There we go, 2 hacks and it's gone. What's that? This door won't open up? Well, what are the hinges made out of? Not adamantium? Stick. And then you just wind up doing like one of those crazy cartoon things where you wind up cutting out a big hole in the wall and you just step on through.
Yeah.
I will not invest my time in something like pick locks, but I will invest in my energies in the arts, so that when I cut a hole in the wall that is blocking my way, it will be in the shape of my outline, so I can just step straight on through.
So I guess D&D characters tend to be more destroyers than repairers when it comes to sort of the environment.
Oh, well, I mean, they don't plan on living in the dungeon mostly afterwards, and there are, historically 25% likely to eventually have access to the disintegration spell. So I don't even need to care what shape it is. No, there is no wall. It's just a 10 by 10 by 10 cube of dust.
Yeah. But I like the thought of sometimes every once in a while encountering an NPC, either if it's in a dungeon, like living off in a corner of the cage, or a guy living in a town or something, and he needs help repairing something or fixing something, and the characters just happen to have that skill.
Well, that would work very nice for magic items in 2nd edition because, as I've said before, they required much more esoteric things, much more adventure-based stuff. Be like, you have to capture, for your magic item, like 3 impossible things. So it'd be like, you have to capture the a ray of moonlight, and then you got to find some way to actually do that. And so it's like, I have this magical item, but it's broken right now. And it's my dying wish to see it restored. And I suppose once it's dying, I can die in peace. You can have it if you want. I just want to see it back to the glory that my ancestors said it was at before one of them got eaten by a dragon.
Okay.
We managed to recover both the corpse and what was left of the armor by following the dragon around for 3 days with a giant baggie. The dragon didn't attack anyone after that. He was just really creeped out by us following around with a giant baggie. So yeah, then you gotta wind up going off and adventuring and finding these impossible things to restore the armor to its former glory.
Mm-hmm.
What gets off the bog of eternal stench stink? Did they ever actually have anything like that in Labyrinth, or was it like, that's it, permanent, you stink forever? Because I think that would probably be one of the items you'd have to get rid of this dragon feces stained armor.
Something like purifying perfume of Ilana.
You have to go to the plane of radiance and just have it get blasted clean by the colors.
Yeah.
But don't worry, because it's the plane of radiance, it gets to keep its original color. It's a non-bleaching effect.
Oh, good. So it's the plane of radiance, not the plane of radiation. That's a different plane.
That's a different plane entirely, and boy, do you need a lot of extra gear to adventure there safely. But yeah, that might be another thing too. Is not just getting these things, but going to this dangerous location. Like, let's come up with like a decanter of endless water if you need to get that repaired. I could definitely see being one of the things that you have to actually go to the elemental plane of water.
Oh yeah, okay.
So you actually have to go to something like, and gotta find like a pure water, source there. I imagine there's a lot of salt water in that place and a lot of contaminated water.
Yeah.
There's creatures there, and creatures poop in water. Like, all sorts of fish do that.
Creatures poop in the ocean, so...
So, yeah, you have to, like, really hunt down to find this pure area of water in the elemental plane. And that sounds like a good, nice little adventure on its own there.
It does sound fun.
Yeah. Maybe I should break some magic items for you, Josh. Just go... Man, what if that's the thing? Like, what if... Here's a concept for a campaign. It's a much more metropolitan, sort of urban, sort of, I guess, high fantasy thing, where there's like a magic item, like sort of guild or like an organization where they make and repair these sorts of things, and you're part of the repair crew. You have to go out and you have to get these items. You have to, get the stuff for magic item creation. You have to, go to these dangerous locations to help, purify this, or get the calcs of that, or just have it imbued by the ambient energies of. And just stay there long enough for it to be properly protected against all the hostile creatures.
Yeah.
Maybe not much in the way of plot as I currently statted out. You're just doing stuff for other people, but I mean, you get to see the planes, go adventuring, have a lot of fun.
Yeah. Kill
things, take their stuff, take it back. Say, hey, I got your stuff for a magic item, and here's 3 other magic items too. Put it in the bargain bin. They're not expensive magic items. Wands, 50% off or more, charges as is. So yeah, I guess it'd have to be something like what was that place that wasn't Sigil? It was where the Mercane wound up going. Union, that's the place, yeah. So it'd be a nice Union type place where you'd wind up operating from. And historically, the Mercane have been the arcane that required magical items to reproduce. So you'd be doing it for the good of a species, although there are a lot of very yucky jokes about how they need them.
Okay.
It's even said back in the second edition that like people make crude jokes about them needing magical items to procreate.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean that's the sort of thing like if you are into that as a nice, I guess that could be like a nice like nightly campaign. Just like, okay, who's here for the night? Okay, here's your mission for the night.
Yeah.
But in the end, because I've described some of the processes of how to do it, both magical and mundane for repairing things. Would you allow it to go to that, or would you work on basic roles? Okay, you don't really have to know how to repair your armor, but you do have like the armor smithing skill, and you rolled a 20, so you fixed it. Would you give bonuses?
I guess
for knowing how you're going to do it.
I would. What would I do? Okay, so I mean, I guess we're playing it within the D&D rule set, right?
Or at least homebrew rules, you know.
Okay.
Give away, but yeah.
I would probably try and stick with rules that exist as much as possible. So the only way armor would necessarily get broken is if, you know, those corner cases, Rust Monster,
critical hit on a spell will also do that. That's where that table comes from, like what gets damaged sort of thing.
Yeah, there's certain spells that do that. And I would do, you know, that every once in a while a critical fumble maybe. So that I would just
roll a critical fumble, you roll the one again, and that's a really bad one. Yeah, something gets broken, or at least, you know, like you got to get it fixed.
Yeah, and then in order, like, just because I'd want to keep it relatively realistic, I wouldn't have characters just sort of the whole like spin your hands around real fast and magically throw some gold up in the air and it disappears and then poof. Yeah.
How about punishing people that aren't doing things realistically? Like one of the things I quite like about the Wheel of Time series is that people, you know, when they've got their bows, they don't always keep the bows strung all the time.
That's true.
When they expect danger to happen, you know, they're going from A to B, whereas, there are dangerous people here. But by and large, they don't keep the bow strung up all the time, whereas you'll encounter, like, oh no, someone's sneaking into your room in the night. I grab my bow and quiver and I shoot off a couple arrows. It's like, you kept your bow, you know, like all strung up overnight. So would you consider punishing them by saying, like, no, you got to spend some money and get yourself a proper new string, you've stretched out too much?
Well, I might do. I mean, it hadn't occurred to me until you mentioned that.
Whoops!
I might do a little bit of that.
There goes my Archer plan for future characters.
But I'm not the kind of DM who like penalizes characters. Say you didn't say you went to the bathroom, so you all die because you're right.
You're so backed up, your eyes color turns brown.
Because as a DM, I sort of feel like I should apply common sense, and even if the player isn't mentioning, oh yeah, my character is doing. Oiling his armor at the end of the night every night. If I know that character is sort of military trained or something like that, or is likely to be the kind of person who.
Or how about as a detriment to the people that's like, oh, what do you mean I can only travel for 8 hours a day? There's still another, you know, like at least 4 hours before, you know, the sunset goes. But a lot of that's spent on taking care of your horse, you know, cooking yourself a decent meal. Because, dude, you traveled a lot today. Taking care of the corns on your feet and, you know, working on your maintenance and upkeep. You know, polishing the armor, you know, putting the, what's it, the black you put on the sword to make sure it doesn't wind up getting rusty. It's sword black.
Oh. Is it sword black? I don't know. I've never. I'm not familiar with.
It's like a grease or an oil that helps keep a protective coating on swords, so that they are less likely to succumb to just ambient rusting effects.
Okay. Yeah,
I think it is an oil. I don't know if it's always black. I think sometimes it's just a nice oil.
It's funny that that's something that you don't encounter in treasure tables or lists of. You know what you find in a.
I wouldn't, you know, hesitate to put it in if I thought the players actually knew what I was talking about. Because it seems like I'm the only person that knows on that one. Yeah. Don't know why.
I guess sometimes you get like you describe a room in a dungeon. Oh, there's like alchemical supplies and unguents and oils and various things. Among them might be something that you could use to oil your sword up. But you don't really get into that much detail when you describe it. But it's sort of assumed to be there.
Unless, if someone's looking for it, they can find it.
Yeah.
That said, I mean, I suppose you could even make an argument for like just even olive oil working, but you really want like it's something that'll stay on there, you know, like hardy oil.
But I mean, in the player's handbook, whetstone is the wet WHET.
Whetstone to sharpen it. But then because you're sharpening it, it does open up and expose it to rust effects. Because of the abrasive nature, which is why you apply the oil on afterwards to keep that coating, so that even if you don't wind up using it, it doesn't wind up being like the raw edge on there.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know enough about our weapon maintenance, but I would imagine.
Apparently, I'm quite good at this knowledge. I had no idea I was so sagacious in this matter.
Okay.
But yeah, for those people who do want to like push on and just like, I'm gonna march as long as I can, and then I'm gonna drop at the end of the night, you know, and then just sleep, and I'll start up again the next day. We'll make it there in half the time by I guess if you're going an extra 4 hours, that would wind up being 2/3 the time, give or take. And then you wind up penalizing us like, dude, you are not taking care of any of your stuff. You are just like walking dead here. It is just absolutely horrible travesty.
Yeah, you could sort of increase the chances, just either just sort of mentally as a DM, just thinking, oh yeah, he's.
Or at least give them a reminder. It's like, dude, you are not taking care of your equipment this way. It does take these are the extra hours of downtime and relaxation. You are burning yourself out mentally, and your items are starting to show a little wear and tear.
Yep. Yeah, you could describe it that way. I like
also
that.
A nice excuse to get people to go back into town, so they're not just sitting dungeon after dungeon after dungeon, right? I can still carry 25 more pounds of gold. Let's go the next wing of the dungeon.
Yeah. Although, that's the whole. I think we talked about downtime. There's a trade-off with the fact of, you don't want players to be unrealistically out constantly away from town and never go back and never fix things up. But at the same time, the interesting part of the adventure is the adventuring.
Well, it's the thing. I mean, you can make it more than just the dungeon.
Yeah.
Shock and awe to the original like hack and slash adventures. You can like make sure that it be like the dungeon starts at the town and has repercussions. It's not just like two isolated areas.
Yeah, but I suppose like if you're a good character portrayer, that trip to the town to buy whetstones or repair your armor. That could be an interesting role-playing encounter. You can learn information about the dungeon from the guy who's repairing your armor. You can have a little interaction with him to.
Well, that's the thing. If you're not the only adventurers there, trying out this dungeon historically, you can gain a lot of information by figuring out beforehand, asking the blacksmith, the armor smith, and all that. What did they come back with damage? It's like, oh man, like he was missing like the entire lower half of his armor, just absolutely gone away. Rust monster. So there was all sorts of, like little puncture marks in there, traps, sort of thing. And so you could wind up getting, it's like, okay, we got to keep an eye out on this. We'll be wary of this. Expect this happening. And so just by talking to the people who do the upkeep, one, it gets a chance to do the role playing things. That way you don't have to encounter those dang talking goblins in the dungeon. Just hack and slash all. Oh, I already role played today. Hack, 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 hack. But you could gain a legitimate bonus as to what to expect, and just like, oh yeah, he sat with me the entire time I was repairing the armor. He was talking about that. I suppose I could get me some charcoal. I'll see what I can sketch out based on what he said of how things were. Because I mean, like who else is going to know what's going on there but the people that help the people that are in there before you. Mm-hmm. So you could have some very good role playing and get the tactical bonuses out of it. Which, if you're not big on role playing, there's your bonus for it. Like, oh, I don't like to talk to these people that don't do anything for me. It's like, no, they can if you're approaching it with the right angle. Mm-hmm. You just gotta role play a shrewd guy that's out to get information. I think that's a very nice way of going about it. Besides, it does help humanize the people you're encountering. When you go back, say, I'll go back, and then I'm gonna, after he's done repairing the armor for the night and taking, John Smith, the blacksmith, out for beers at the tavern sort of thing. So it's not just like, oh yeah, now it's like, 4 strange people sitting at the bar. It's like, no, man, hey, let's just face the barbarians back. Oh yeah, he's with John. Look at them, they're sharing. Next thing you know, you're part of the community. You're the hero, man.
Yeah.
So it does help out just from those little effects.
What if there's a battle in a town?
Okay.
And say maybe some ogres or something like that. And
dang, ogres always trying to eat our women folk.
Yeah. And the PCs successfully managed to fight off the ogres, but the ogres smashed several of the houses and the main town hall and the tavern and everything like that. And the players decide, no, we want to. We like this town.
Or what if they felt that the ogres, because we'll say plot-wise, the ogres followed them back. You smashed the ogre caves, but you didn't get all the patrols. You didn't make sure you got everything, and so the ogres retaliated. You hurt our place, we'll hurt yours.
Yeah.
And so then they feel guilty.
Yeah.
This is really on our heads, guys, and I don't think just showering them with money is going to make things better.
So what do you do? Do you do a montage scene of the PCs carrying wood? And
I think montage would work very well, especially if you got some spellcasters. Tenzor's floating disc is a godsend for construction.
Yeah.
It is basically like somewhere between a maglev and a dolly.
Yeah, that would be. Yeah.
To say nothing of the higher level spells, where it's just like, oh yeah, I magicked the wall back up. Thank you for putting all the raw materials out there. It really helped me, guys.
Although I have my experience with players is often that when player characters get involved in a project, like a civic project like that, sometimes it kind of goes wrong a little bit, and they get weird ideas, and
yes,
go crazy.
We must put boiling oil pots every 10 feet around the village wall. But the
Yeah.
village wall is made out of wood. Then we'll have to make it out of stone. No, steel. And things just got out of hand. It's sort of crazy, like this old house, but for medieval dungeon, techniques.
And then it's like, where are we going to get that much steel? We have to quest for it. We'll be back.
We killed a lot of goblins and trolls back at the last, area. We'll just come back with the armor. We'll start rendering it down. Which, I think is, by the way, I do believe is a very nice way to make sure you clean out the dungeon. Just if nothing else, render it down to weight. Because apparently in 5th edition, a lot of the stuff that you get off the corpses of your defeated foes has been rendered useless by your mighty hacking and slashing.
Yeah.
But that said, if you want to play a frugal dude, go for it. That's one of the things that they did have with the Diablo 2 was the barbarian had a chance to roll again for the treasure tables, which works. But I could see just I guess I am got this for my thing from my back history is like I am very frugal. I'm like a scavenger society, so I'm able to get the most out of everything, which I know is supposed to be role playing, but is it really that much more to be able to get 10% of an armor's value left in reusable components? Stuff that hasn't been hacked to pieces, you can wind up building your own.
Yeah.
That was also one of the things I really did like historically about the old Dark Sun campaign, was you could mix and match your armor types based on piecemeal, because you can't always just get a full plate just out there. So you'd have this part and a main central piece, and then your arm on one side is this, your arm on the other side's that, and a nice way of averaging out your AC for it all. So you do upgrade, like you were saying, how about upgrading your armor? In this case, it'd be one arm or leg piece at a time.
Yeah.
Without having to worry about because the one thing I would not want to have to try and do with keeping track of the durability on my armor is keeping track of the durability on the boots, the pants, the armor, for the chest piece, and the shoulders and all that. It's just no, man. This is my armor. If it's a magic item, sort of thing like magic boots, it counts separately, but otherwise it's just armor. As one whole piece, and that way, you can keep everything together, and that way you can even say, you take so much durability, and damage and all that, and you wind up losing potentially a chunk of it, so you're gonna have to replace the left arm. It's I'm gonna get replaced with, I can't afford enough for all of it, but I think I can get the magical psi crystal armor, at least for the one arm. I'll just upgrade the rest of it, a la carte.
Yep. Yeah.
Not a bad way of going about it. That said, to upgrade to 5th edition would take a little bit of time and mathematics to make everything hunky-dory.
Yeah.
But, with the open game license, I could upgrade that stuff, put it in with the different armor types, throw in some rules I had from 3rd edition, upgrade those about weapons, and hey, I think I got myself another product.
Yeah.
But no, I gotta focus on the adventure one first. Focus on that one first.
Yeah.
Yes, okay.
Yeah.
One thing at a time. Don't get burnt out thinking up too many ideas.
What about, let's see, bad guys having broken items or broken things? I
think that works very nice for a plot thing. We'll take Lord of the Rings. As I said earlier, Aragorn's eventual sword was, forged from the ruins of Narsil.
Yep.
Now, what if Narsil wasn't just a whole bunch of pieces of very sharp sword sitting, over with the elves? What if it had since dispersed throughout around, and so they'd have to get enough of the pieces to reforge something out of it?
Mm-hmm.
In which case, you wind up having to fight with the bad guy over piece after piece, and then it's neither of us can do anything with it. We've got each 3 pieces, but we need all 6 to reforge the sword back whole.
Okay. Yeah.
So there, you've got yourself a nice plot set up for adventuring out and about, a clear reward for when you win, as well as a nice way of trying, like there's like an opposing team. Are you really going to be villain? Like have the villain oppose it, or just another like band of like heroes to be antagonistic? So like, how do you want to wind up playing that? And then it just winds up, I got 4 pieces, he got 2, so I wound up just buying the other 2 pieces off him. Cost a bit of a pretty penny, but whatever.
Yeah.
I do know 3rd edition had rules for repairing magic items. I believe it was 1/5 their value. It was the cost to get it repaired, and then you could get it reforged whole and fresh and new.
Okay, yeah.
Which, by the way, I always thought should be a nice baseline for trying to get your armor to look different. Like, ooh, this would look so much better if it was done in a non-drow style. And I'm not really a fan of all this cobweb and spider motif. People might get the wrong message about my paladin of Paylor that way. And so, I'd say getting it repaired being 1/5, getting it to redesigned being 1/10 its price.
Yeah, sounds good to me.
But there's never any rules on that one. Oh, I guess I'll have to put a pin in that and add it to the list of my big book of armory things to do.
Yeah.
But, that's another thing entirely. It's just the design of the armors and the weapons. But I might have to be a topic for another day.
Yeah. And I suppose, sometimes you can have your MacGuffin, your ultimate item, could be something that's broken, like the Narsil, the shield, the sword that was broken, or
historically the rod of 7 parts. I suppose. Yeah. I think we would be very remiss not to have mentioned.
Yeah, that thing. That's a thing.
It is a very historical thing that they're apparently bringing back in 5th edition. The Dukes, the Wind Dukes, and all that being mentioned. That said, it's innately fragile now that it's been sundered into 7 parts. Apparently nobody fixes it properly. So whenever you use its powers, there's a chance of everything breaking and just blowing off in all to the directions of the wind. So I guess you can also make an argument over, spending a lot more time and energy and doing a full, complete repair versus just a stopgap repair where, I just put a little patch up here, a little bit over here, and padding over there, and everything's fine on my armor. Versus, no, you take that to a weaponsmith, and you take that to an armorsmith, and you spend the money, and you get all your weapons and your armor repaired, and you go back out on the field like a regular person and not some crazy murder hobo.
Right.
So I think there's an argument to be made there, although I don't believe there's any official rules for ever getting the rod of 7 parts to become just that one rod that used to be 7 parts. Although I'm sure if I Googled it, there have been a lot of people who have tried some sort of I put in an exoskeleton around it so that way they can't fly off. They'll just shatter and, to pieces. I have to reassemble it later.
I guess there's something to, it's a little bit like the comic book universe. There are certain universals that no matter how you try to change them, they seem to always go back to the way, no, this is just the rod of 7 parts. That's iconic, or, that's how it is. It's 7 parts. You can't change that now. You can't make it just the rod of 1 part. Then it wouldn't be... The rod of 1.5 parts. Boy, that's going to be a hard one to look at. And it's just, as you see, it's how is it in 1.5 pieces? Ow, oh, there's sanity damage. Well, I remember, what was I reading? If you gathered all the pieces of the true cross, you could make a ship out of it.
Well, yeah, true cross in air quotes. There's a lot of people that have been selling chunks of wood and calling it the true cross.
Yeah.
On the other hand, can you imagine how hard it must have been for the Romans to have found a piece of wood or two to make into a cross that combined so many different types of trees? What an amazing amount of work they went into just to make certain that one guy, carried around and got crucified on. But yes, how can people get a hold of us, Josh?
Oh, yeah, we should do social media. Yeah. Well, we have a Facebook page, facebook.com/thesimulationist, where you can write little comments that show up on the right-hand side of that page, and we will see them, and we can converse with you.
And we do try and get on at least once a day on there, so it is a nice approximate 24-hour turnaround.
Yeah, that's true. YouTube.com/thesimulationist, where you can find this show and all of our previous shows. As well as you can subscribe to us on iTunes. You can leave reviews on iTunes. Tell all the people how much you like the show, or you can leave a negative review. It's allowed, and you can give us as many stars as you think we deserve, up to 5.
So does that one go into half stars as well, or is it just whole star stuff?
I can't remember now. I think it might be a half star system.
Oh, okay. So you can, give us the 1.5 stars for the bad joke about breaking something into 1.5 pieces.
Oh, yeah, they could.
Oops, looks like I set us up for failure.
We're also available on Stitcher and other podcatchers, wherever podcasts are sold. So
quality podcasts are given away for free.
Yeah, exactly. So subscribe to us on wherever your favorite way to get podcasts is. And if we missed one, you can email me at thesimulationist@gmail.com and let us know.
I suppose I could just tweet at you at SpaceBoot1.
And that's another way to get a hold of me.
That is the numeral 1, not ONE.
Numeral 1 is my Twitter show. And, of course, if you happen to live in Victoria, British Columbia, come on down to Roll for Initiative, rollforinitiative.ca, play D&D with me and some of my friends there. Unfortunately, Brian, he's got
I've got family and television.
Yeah. But that's one
I do miss it. Every time I'm not there, I do miss it.
And if you come out to any kind of comedy show in Victoria, you might just run into me. Not necessarily on the stage, but, you never know. It's just Victoria stuff going on, live comedy and everything else.
If not that, even if you don't meet Josh, you went out for a night of comedy. You really going to complain about that?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that's everything. Yeah, I think that's all the things. Email thesimulationist@gmail.com.
All one word, no underscores.
Yeah, and so final thoughts?
I think ultimately everything we've said has to boil down though to is going to make the game more fun to have this. If you want just a nice quick night of fun where you don't have to worry about upkeep and all that stuff, and it's just a simple pleasures campaign, don't worry. Nothing gets broken, nothing really runs out. You just have fun. You go out there, play. Don't have to worry about any of your armor getting sundered. If you don't want to play that amount of extra work it has in there, sure, go for it. It's not like anything we mentioned has to be included. But that said, I think you can, if you are going for something a little deeper, a little bit more complex, you can get a lot of richness out of it by mining that one layer. It's not the only layer to mine. It's just one layer in a wonderful strata of a great, and complex campaign. But I think, as I said, it doesn't necessarily need to be anything. Like, nothing breaks down, nothing gets broken. It's just, you can always do a nice, simple campaign, and you don't have to worry about that stuff. And that's what I learned from the Diablo 2. They said, don't really worry about, food. This is not a food-eating campaign. This is a killing monsters campaign. So don't worry about your food rations. And so in which case, if you just want to play a nice, fun campaign where you don't even have to worry about, durability getting lost on your items, you don't have to worry about, getting your weapon, punctured, and you're broken and all that stuff. Don't worry about it. It's okay to play that simple campaign without having that extra level of depth and complexity.
Yeah, cool. And I would totally agree with that. I think, the reason to look at things like breaking and repairing is because that's often overlooked, and it can be a very dramatic part of the human experience. Because we all live our lives, fixing things and having things break on us, and that's a real part of our existence.
And it can add a lot of dramatic tension. Think of the Iron Man 3. His armor was getting pretty badly busted in that one. My goodness, if nothing broke, if he wound up being like he was like cherry every bit of the time, just gleaming no matter what he did, would it really have been as dramatic?
No, I don't think so. Yeah.
So done right, it can add some nice dramatic tension to it. Done wrong, it is the DM just nickel and diming you for every dang thing. Oh yeah, we can't even make a profit off this dungeon, even with the doors being made out of adamantine. Cut them up and haul them out. We're still not getting any money out of this thing.
Yeah.
The repairs are just too much.
Yes, indeed. I was going to say something else. Oh, and sometimes things get broken on purpose, or
if I can't have the key to all infinite worlds, nobody can. Shattered.
Yeah. And that can be dramatic in itself. And then, can you repair it or no?
Or is your world forever locked away from the planes now?
Oh,
isolated and alone.
Little point too that I wanted to bring up about things like, what do you think about permanent breakage, or things that can never be repaired? Because I feel a little bit
Well,
like it's
I mean,
not the greatest.
how satisfying would the Lord of the Rings have ended if you realized that all the bad guy needed to do was reforge the One Ring?
Interesting. Yeah.
So sometimes it's very good to have things be permanently destroyed.
Yeah.
Particularly
you get
if
a
you're
sense
good,
of finality, like that's the story.
If you're a good aligned party and you've got an evil magic item, then yes, it's very nice to be able to say, yes, it's destroyed, and it's been destroyed forever.
Yeah, but then if there's like a gate to another plane that gets destroyed, or like maybe a good plane, maybe just an alternate world gets destroyed, and nobody will ever be able to travel to that world ever again.
It's isolated and alone.
But I guess that's.
It's
That's
to get
finality.
9th level magic, or find like a noble genie.
That's the other thing. In D&D, we sort of come up with these exceptions, or what about a wish spell?
Got to find a back route sort of thing. I mean, like if is it still connected to the ethereal plane? Do we just have to find another way to get in there and establish a portal up again? But that one's gone forever, so you have to go through a whole lot to redo what was once done.
Yeah, I guess so.
So you could see it as being repairing something like the portal, or you could see it as having to redo what the masters did. In which case, hey, get a chance to see if you can do it better, man.
Yeah.
Prove yourself to all of time that you're better than the best.
Well, it's a little bit like your Sauron example in that, in order to forge the rings, Sauron. I mean, yes, he made the rings himself, but he also had the assistant. He had, I don't know, I can't remember what the elf lords were doing at the time. But basically, they had to give him some level of power in order for him to.
I hate to say it, but whenever you ask what the elves were doing throughout history, I just imagine them frolicking in glades because they really don't seem to do a whole lot except for one or two adventures.
Well, you need to read the Silmarillion more. They do.
It's a lot of political intrigue and a lot of just elves just sitting around for 1,000 years, really doing nothing except elven things.
In some portions of that book, it seems like they don't do anything for many generations.
And what's the thing for them? It's not even many generations. It's just like, oh. God, what millennia is it? We have just been drinking and just bumming it around the woods for 1,000 years. Oh my human friends are dead now. Oh, I totally missed all the funerals. I look like such an aloof jerk. Everyone's gonna think elves are all these aloof, like we don't care immortals. Oh, we really blew it here, Bor.
But my theory on Sauron is if he could sort of deceive the elves, or actually, who did he see? The elves
deceived everybody, really,
and the men of Numenor, and
the dwarves.
Dwarves. But if he could pull off that same deception again, sure, he could probably do a new ring cycle thing.
I'm pretty certain they know he's evil.
But
now.
I think it'd be difficult. Maybe if he had won the War of the Ring, I guess he would have got the ring back. But if he had won that war. And maybe if the ring had been lost, but he won that war, and the ring was, down in Moria, and he couldn't get it.
Balrog's flashing its bling down there.
Yeah, and the Balrog decides for some reason not to give it to Sauron, or just.
He is willful enough to be able to say no, and just
That's true.
Do you want to see my ring? I put it on this finger right here. Which I imagine is how he speaks. I don't know. That's just me, though.
But you imagine Sauron sort of takes over Middle-earth and wins that battle, and then sort of has his own sort of kingdoms, goblin kingdoms, maybe a subject human kingdom. That's
the human kingdoms to the east were very heavily Sauron, controlled.
So he probably, if he built up his power and sort of became a really, world dominating,
completely world dominating, not just everywhere except Middle-earth.
Yeah.
Apparently he pretty much had control of everything except Middle-earth.
Yeah.
The men from the south, the men from the east, and the orc and dragon-infested north was, all his.
But I imagine at that point he could turn his attention to another project on the scale of the ring, or probably he could make a new ring. That's what I'm saying.
A necklace.
Yeah, the necklace.
Tiara.
A bracelet, one step up from the ring. Bracelet next.
I don't know. I suppose you could go for one of those nice little thin girdle lines going on there.
Yeah, and then he could use it to control more Nazgul and make 18 this time. 9 wasn't enough before.
Another 9 Nazgul.
Yeah.
Or I guess you could just strengthen his bonds on with the other ones, because it didn't do anything against the elves, and apparently the dwarves, they just got extra greedy.
I think, the dwarves got greedy and they got eaten by dragons.
Yeah, that's kind of a nasty side effect. But yeah, if you could strengthen up the bonds on that, so you could get like whatever like a dwarf turns into if it holds onto the ring too long, and do something to the elves, you get some like wicked old like banshees going on there. Yeah, you could have some real good fun.
Yeah.
But it really didn't do much aside from hit those humans, so
yeah.
he could really strengthen up his ring. So yes, okay, that's an interesting little extra antenna there. Sorry. So you'll hear from us again in 7 days.
I've been Josh Gillette.
I've been Ryan Kirkby.
I've been Lenny.